So a little while ago, someone asked me how I achieved the effect on the opening acoustic guitar of a song that I had recorded and mixed, and that was also my band, The Next Doors, a song called Canyonlands. So I thought it would be fun to take a look at that session and to talk about creative ways to use reverbs and delays that aren't just sort of the norm, to experiment and to create interesting sonic textures and something unique. So let's take a look at the Pro Tools session. All right, so here's the Pro Tools session, and this song starts out with just a single guitar mic'd in stereo, and then the chain of effects. So let's just take a quick listen to what it sounds like, just on its own, just like it does on the record. And there you can hear kind of how it fades off and what it's doing. You hear a bunch of reverb and delay cloud and some modulation going on. You can hear some back and forth in stereo and one or two different modulation effects. So and then just simply without any effects. Pretty simple, straightforward guitar sound. So now, conventional wisdom might be that for every effect that you want on there, you would do a different send. So you might have 5 effects there, you have 5 different sends, and that way you can really dial in the exact amount of each thing that you want. But a little more fun, a little more experimental is to just sort of start lining things up and see what happens. And that's the approach that I took here. So, I started out with just a simple, basically a hall reverb, so without all the effects that follow it. Easy, simple hall reverb. So then, and it sounds nice, but then I want to start experimenting. So I pulled up this roto speaker, imitating like a Leslie on a slow setting. So let's hear that. And I'm going to go ahead and there's just the effect without the original guitar in there. So you can hear that's doing a definite stereo thing and making it heavily modulated like a rotator speaker. After that, I said, all right, let's take just our pure reverb that's now modulated, do some additional delay, only 50% on the mix there. So we're letting about half that original sound through, and then half is going to have this additional delay. And there's also a chorus going on this particular delay, and it's a fairly lo-fi analog style delay as well. So let's hear that. So now we have 2 different modulations, fighting against each other. You can hear that there's some panning. There's some vibrato where you can hear the pitches changing, starting to get sort of, stranger and stranger sounding. Then next, I just said, well, let's even, extend it out longer than that. So I pulled up the D-verb, of course, the built-in Pro Tools reverb. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're using this plugin, it better be on church, or you have no excuse using it. And so we got 6 additional seconds, but at about 50% once again. So we're hearing about half of what's coming in, and then the other half is being added to this additional reverb, and pretty mid-range focus, as you can see from the high-frequency cut and the low-pass filter. So at this point, you'd be hard-pressed to even figure out what the chord progression is or possibly what the instrument is. And then, last but not least, we've got this ozone device where I'm adding some mid-range, taking their imager and spreading it out as stereoized as you can get it, and then just using the maximizer to boost the levels. So let's hear that. And with the original guitar. So there you have it. You've got this kind of crazy cloud of surreal reverb and delay and effects that probably wouldn't have ended up very much like this if I had made them each individual and really tried to dial them in. When you do it this way, when they're just in a row, there is no dialing things in. It's got, you know, unpredictable effects, and each one affects the one before it quite a bit, and depending upon where you sit the mix on each one of these, you could have a radically different, you know, this roto speaker is only 64%. Bring that down or up, and you're going to have a lot less of that modulation, and then that's, you know, made exponentially more or less, because then it's fed into delays, then it's fed into reverbs, then it's fed into a mastering boost, essentially. So this is a fun way to go about experimenting with sound, with, you know, fairly conventional stuff. There's nothing here that's like a mind-blowing effect. It's all kind of pretty normal stuff that you might use. And the cool thing is it almost sounds like a synthesizer or something in the background. And you could have done that, you know, I could have added a synth, and that could have been cool too. But this is unique because it really tracks, of course, exactly to the original guitar part as it's played. But this blurry thing that you wouldn't even know what it was if you heard it by itself. But when you hear it with the guitar, you know, they're married together perfectly. You put it back in the mix far enough, and it just has this magical quality. And the idea is you find just the right amount so that when the vocals start, when the cellos come in, when the track starts building, it kind of vanishes into the mix, and it doesn't stand out as this like effect that calls attention to itself. It really is the most audible right at the outset to create something interesting right off the bat. So yeah, have fun, you know, experiment, do something a little outside the box, and you might achieve some cool stuff. You might not, but hey, if you don't, you haven't lost anything, because experimenting like this is sort of, you know, the equivalent of practicing when you're a musician. This is practicing for when you're trying to produce or engineer or mix. So good luck with that.